You, you call that an interview? What a joke. I swear to you, what a joke. Good morning, Kuhner country. Okay, well, it took, what was it, over 5 weeks? Finally, Comrade Kamala, but she had to bring Tiananmen Tim, Tampon Tim. She needed Tim Walz there with her, holding her hand as an emotional support dog to give her emotional support. So she finally does this interview, with This is CNN. And of course it was Dana Bash who did the interview. She gives the softest interviews for Democrats of all of the propagandists at CNN, and they deliberately picked her. Harris and Walz deliberately picked Bash because she throws the biggest, juiciest softballs of everybody on CNN, and that's saying something. So they got a state media propagandist. And even still, it was a disaster for Kamala. I mean, she had a few word salads. I'm not talking about rambling incoherently, which she did a little bit. But it was how weak Harris was, how vacuous she is, how vague she is, how evasive she is. As Sandy and I were just saying like 30 seconds before we came on the air, you know, as Sandy said to me, I don't think she answered a single question. She doesn't answer questions. She just dances and equivocates. And look, I'm telling you, if this is the best that Kamala Harris can do, they're in big, big, big trouble. Now you know why they hide her. Now you know why they have her avoiding interviews and press conferences. And what's incredible is that this was in a so-called media safe zone. I mean, these were her closest allies. These are people that are coddling her. They want her to win. And every question Dana Bash asked, every single one of them, was directed at helping Kamala Harris. In some cases, the questions were so loaded, she actually tried to give her the answers within the question itself. I'm telling you, you couldn't make this thing up. Now, the other thing that strikes out, I'm going to get into the specific details, but the other thing that struck me was not just how thin Kamala is, intellectually thin, how superficial, how out of her league, out of her depth, her inability to answer any questions with any kind of specificity or detail whatsoever. There's no substance to this woman whatsoever. I mean, really, there really isn't much between those ears. But the other thing that struck me is how insecure Comrade Kamala is. It's all over her face. It's all over her body language. And Dana Bash kept trying to reassure her, help her, just almost like spoon feed her questions and answers. The interview was only 18 minutes. 18 minutes. There were so many questions that Dana Bash refused to ask, or obvious contradictions, obvious counter questions, follow-up questions that she could have easily asked if she had a scintilla of professional journalistic integrity. And even then, the interview was pre-taped. As Trump rightly pointed out, he goes, everything I do is live. I do a press conference, live. I do interviews, live. Unscripted questions from reporters, anywhere, anytime. It's all live. It's all on the spot. No. With Chameleon Kamala and Tiananmen Tim, they had to do this in Savannah. Hours before it aired, they made sure that if there was an embarrassing answer, it gets sliced out. They make sure if there's any word salads that they trim it and prune it and make sure it doesn't embarrass her. The whole thing was scripted, and she still sucks. You can't make this up. I'm telling you, you can't make this up. First of all, this is CNN. That CNN, that Dana Bash would do such a pathetic interview. As I said to Grace last night, I said, forget media bias. We are so beyond media bias. There's no media anymore. This is public relations. No, really. CNN, MSNBC, ABC News, NBC, CBS, all of them, New York Times, Washington Post. What they're there is really to serve as a public relations hub. They're almost like communications directors for the Democratic Party. That's all. It's almost like, let's get someone, dress her up in a pantsuit, and put her in front of the camera, and be kind of like a foil, someone who just asks questions to our candidates, and just to give out our message. There's no journalism. There's no investigation. There's no serious questioning. They're not there to inform the American voter. They're there to carry her into power, to make her look as good as possible. They're now glorified PR firms. That's really now what journalism has descended into. CNN, this thing last night was an embarrassment. You call this an interview? At one point, I'm not making this up. I thought she was going to ask them, what's your favorite chocolate chip cookie recipe? I honestly thought, I said, are you kidding me? She's following them. They're doing like in between segments of the interview. It's 18 minutes, so they have to really drag this thing out. That Dana Bash is with them on the campaign, and they're at this restaurant in Georgia, okay? Because Kamala was in Georgia yesterday, and they're ordering lunch. And this is Dana Bash, and they're showing this in between the segments, the interview segments. And what did you order? And Harris says, oh, I had brisket and mac and cheese and some greens. And she goes to Waltz, what about you? He goes, oh, I had the brisket and the coleslaw. Oh, good choice. Good choice. You're asking, this is your tough question? What they had in their sandwich? Do you like brisket? Do you not like brisket? I like coleslaw. No, I don't like coleslaw. Are you serious? I'm telling you, Ted Turner, who is a huge liberal, but at least he wanted CNN to have some kind of journalistic standards, for God's sake. He's turning in his grave, saying you're making a mockery of everything CNN was 40, 50 years ago. Not that it was great then, don't get me wrong. So, the few questions that were asked, it's going to bury Kamala. I'm telling you, if I'm the Trump team, at this point now, I am salivating at the answers that Kamala has given, because it now shows how they're going to direct and manage their campaign and how they want to take this going forward. So, on the big question of inflation, you've been in power now for nearly 4 years. Many voters are saying again and again and again, inflation, the price of gas, the price of food, the price of groceries, rent, housing, you name it, was much lower and cheaper under Trump. What's your answer to that? This was essentially one of the questions Dana Bash asked. Listen now to Kamala's answer. Roll cut uno, cut one, Mike.
I wonder what you say to voters who do want to go back when it comes to the economy specifically, because their groceries were less expensive, housing was more affordable when Donald Trump was president.
Well, let's start with the fact that when Joe Biden and I came in office, during the height of a pandemic, we saw over 10 million jobs were lost. People, I mean, literally, we were all tracking the numbers. Hundreds of people a day were dying because of COVID. The economy had crashed. In large part, all of that because of mismanagement by Donald Trump of that crisis.
So, okay. So, I mean, it's so easy to destroy this argument, okay? But let's just leave, let's let it go, as I like to say. So, now it was all Donald Trump's fault. It's all Donald Trump's fault. And then what are you going to do to end inflation? So it's all Donald Trump's fault. So notice, she's not taking any responsibility for all the disastrous mistakes that Biden and Harris made. No. It's all Donald Trump's fault. But then she's asked specifically by Dana Bash. Okay, but look, inflation is still, it's still high. Prices are still very high. Americans are really struggling. What's your prescription? How are you going to solve this for the American people? She doubles down on an incredible answer. And I'm telling you, if Trump's people are smart, they can finish her right here, right now. That, your calls next. 619 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, liberalism's worst nightmare, baby. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, my apologies to Ted the Terrible, as I called him when I wrote a big piece on him in the Washington Times. Oh, man, that was almost 25 years ago. I did an interview on Ted Turner. I did a profile, forgive me, on Ted Turner for the paper I was working for at the time. And I actually met him in Washington. I interviewed him, and I got to tell you, he looked 100 then. And so and then apparently it was reported that Ted Turner died. I thought, well, that's got to be him. No, Ted Turner is still alive. So my apologies to Ted Turner when I said he's rolling over in his grave. Now, he's rolling over somewhere, probably in an assisted living facility, watching what has happened to CNN. I mean, again, not that it was great. It was pretty bad from the beginning. But, man, have they hit new low after new low after new low with this latest interview with Comrade Kamala Harris and Tampon Tim Walz. So she tries to claim on inflation that this is all Trump's fault. It's all Trump's fault. Then she's asked by Dana Bash, what is your plan? How are you going to bring prices down even more? Because, yeah, inflation is going down, but it's still high. Listen now. There's other comments that I think really hurt her, but this is the one that if I'm the Trump team, I pounce all over. Roll cut 1A, Mike.
When we came in, our highest priority was to do what we could to rescue America. And today, we know that we have inflation at under 3%. A lot of our policies have led to the reality that America recovered faster than any wealthy nation around the world. But you are right. Prices, in particular for groceries, are still too high. The American people know it, I know it. Which is why my agenda includes what we need to do to bring down the price of groceries. For example, dealing with an issue like price gouging. What we need to do to extend the child tax credit to help young families be able to take care of their children in their most formative years. What we need to do to bring down the cost of housing. My proposal includes what would be a tax credit of $25,000 for first-time home buyers, so they can just have enough to put a down payment on a home, which is part of the American dream and their aspiration, but do it in a way that allows them to actually get on the path to achieving that goal and that dream.
She's an economic illiterate. I'm telling you, really, it's frightening. It really is frightening. Look, I'm not trying to be insulting. Really, I'm serious. I'm not. But this woman is an absolute idiot. I mean, this is economic idiocy. Now, I can't believe she doubled down on the price gouging. After the blowback that she got. Not forget, from those like me. I'm talking about an army of liberal economists on CNN, MSNBC, New York Times, Washington Post, anybody with two brain cells, CNBC, Bloomberg, all of these shills for her in the media saying, no, this leads to chronic food shortages. Everywhere this is tried, this has been an absolute disaster. A disaster. There she is pushing price controls. Soviet-style price controls. And the woman is just like, she's just dense. Like, it's just, the elevator doesn't go to the top. So, your centerpiece remains price controls. Trump will eat her alive on this issue when they debate on September 10th. In fact, don't even wait till September 10th. You cut her response right here from this interview, and you put it in an ad, and you just loop it and loop it and loop it, and just show people in breadlines. Just show people in breadlines. Because that's what price controls inevitably leads to. Then, you want to go on about giving first-time homebuyers $25,000? It's going to raise the cost of housing. Anybody with a basic knowledge of supply and demand can tell you this. Okay, again, economics 101. An 8th grader could figure this out. And I never got $25,000 from the government to buy my first home. Did you? So you want to buy votes with our money? This is your grand solution to tackling high prices and inflation? And I'm telling you, this was the best of it. This was the best. I can play you another cut about, we negotiated insulin costs. I mean, I could play you these ridiculous. I'm like, this is all you have? By the way, Trump was the one who had Medicare negotiate insulin costs. And then the Biden-Harris regime stopped it and then picked it up again. And suddenly they're claiming it as their own, like everything else. But the fact of the matter is, this is it. Like what I just played to you now, this is her economic plan. Now, you want to talk about thin gruel. You want to talk about weak sauce. There's nothing there. And buzzwords like an opportunity society. Well, what does that mean? We're going to give everybody an opportunity. Well, yeah, how? You're going to have to elect me to find out. I mean, this is pathetic. Pathetic. And the way they're trying to act, like COVID-19 never happened. Never happened. It's like, the economy crashed under Trump. Well, no. The communist Chinese, who you all lied about, unleashed the virus from a lab in Wuhan. And all of you, including you, Kamala, and you, Biden, said, shut the country down. Remember 2 weeks to flatten the curve? And then lockdown. You got to save our lives, lockdown. They think we're so stupid that we won't remember any of this. That somehow this was a depression brought upon by the evil Donald Trump. We know what happened. And then look at inflation under Trump. Look at inflation under Biden-Harris. There's no comparison. My friends, if this is the best that she can do, this woman is unfit to be president. She's unfit to run a lemonade stand. I just got a message on Messenger from Jerome saying, Jeff, actually it was 20 minutes ago, Jeff, throw in not just Tiananmen Tim or Tampon Tim for Tim Walz. Try Tim Paintball Walls. Call him Paintball. I said, Jerome, I like that one. All right, 6:33 on the, actually 6:32 on the great WRKO, Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer. I want to hear from you, Kuhner Country. 617-266-6868 is the number. Did you watch Kamala Harris's first interview as the Democrat presidential nominee? Of course, she couldn't do it alone. Too much stress, too much pressure. So she had to bring her emotional support governor, Paintball Tim. And so it was a joint interview. Most of it was directed towards Comrade Kamala, a few towards Waltz. And I'll get to him a little bit later. He just lied. I mean, just straight out lied. And again, just like her, he doesn't answer the question. So, Dana Bash asked, well, you've been caught lying multiple times. What do you say to people that say you can't be taken at your word? And his answer is, oh, my record speaks for itself. Oh, my record speaks for itself. That's all he kept saying. My record speaks for itself. And her response, Chameleon Kamala's response, was, my values haven't changed. See, that's how they're trying to get around the whole flip-flopper line of attack. The whole flip-flop, accusations, which they know is true. The woman has flipped and flopped and reversed herself on practically everything, and all in the last 4 weeks. So with things that she's been espousing her entire life, all of a sudden, no. Well, is it going to help me get elected? No, I changed my mind. So this is her shtick. Her values haven't changed. Her policy positions, yes, they blow like the wind. But her values haven't changed. And they think that's how they're going to square this circle. It's not going to work, but that's their strategy. So I want to ask all of you, did you watch the interview with Kamala Harris and Tim Waltz? What did you make of it? What did you make of her answers? What did you make of the questions? And this was her first one. The media is gushing. Gushing. She hit it out of the park. She's ready for prime time. She's clearly presidential material. She's cool, collected, confident. The CNN panel afterwards, they were fawning all over her. Oh, she moved the ball down the field. She's now coming into her own right. She's comfortable in her own skin. This is the different Kamala than what we saw on the campaign trail in 2019 or 2020. This is a new woman. And so, did she come across as competent to you? Did she come across as confident to you? Did she come across as substantial to you? A woman with some real substance to her? Because I looked at her and I saw evasion. I saw complete and utter vacuousness. She's an empty vessel. She's an empty suit. She was vague, deliberately vague. At times she rambled. At times she was incoherent. Honestly, at times, I'm not trying to be insulting, just not very smart, but acting and thinking that she's smart. And did you catch the Obama mannerisms? You can see Obama's people are coaching her. Her hand gestures, the pregnant pauses when she speaks, the intonation. She's trying to project a little bit of Obama's speaking style. It just doesn't work because she reeks of inauthenticity and insincerity. When I look at her, all I see is fake, phony politician. Fake, phony to the core. To the core. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, it is the Kuhner Country poll question of the day, sponsored by Mario's. Mario's Quality Roofing, Siding, and Windows. Did you watch Kamala's interview on CNN? And did it help or hurt her? Overall, in terms of helping her with the campaign, helping her get elected in November, did it help Kamala Harris or did it hurt Comrade Kamala? I believe it hurt her. In fact, now I'm convinced every time she opens her mouth in public, it now hurts her. That's me. But I want to hear from you. 617-266-6868. You can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, wrko.com/Kuhner, Kuhn is in national ER. You can also vote via X, my handle there, at the Kuhner Report, all one word, at the Kuhner Report, Kuhn is in national ER. All right, just to give you a taste, a taste of how vacuous, empty, superficial she is. Here it is. This is her when being confronted by Dana Bash. Well, you've changed your position on fracking. And she to Dana Bash's credit, she reads her famous comment in 2019, I will oppose fracking under any circumstances. Listen now. This is how Kamala thinks she's going to, as I said, get around that issue. Roll cut 3A. Mike.
What made you change that position at the time?
Well, let's be clear. My values have not changed. I believe it is very important that we take seriously what we must do to guard against what is a clear crisis in terms of the climate. And to do that, we can do what we have accomplished thus far. The Inflation Reduction Act, what we have done to invest, by my calculation, over probably $1 trillion over the next 10 years, investing in a clean energy economy. What we've already done, creating over 300,000 new clean energy jobs. That tells me, from my experience as vice president, we can do it without banning fracking. In fact, Dana, I cast the tie-breaking vote that actually increased leases for fracking as vice president. So I'm very clear about where I stand.
Did you get any of that? Now, to me, what's incredible, I'm serious, this is how obtuse, this woman is. First of all, she lets the cat out of the bag that the Inflation Reduction Act, which, by the way, led to massive inflation. You want to talk about the worst named law in the history of the United States, this is it. But let that go. They sold it to us as, that's the way to reduce inflation. She just admitted that was our Green New Deal. That's how we got to spend trillions and trillions of dollars on all these Green New Deal projects, clean energy projects, all of these scams that we were pushing on the American public. EV mandates, I could run down the whole list, solar, wind, you name it, everything. Everything. Batteries for electric cars, the whole kit and caboodle. So it wasn't about reducing inflation. She just admitted it. That's number one. Number two, she brags about being the tie-breaking vote on one of the two biggest bills. This and another one, the American Rescue Plan, which are directly responsible for the crushing inflation of the last 3.5 years. There's no getting around it. It was those two bills and the gusher of spending, trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars in spending, that led to the historic inflation that we've suffered as a country. And this woman is like, I cast the tie-breaking vote. Yeah, I did it. Dana, I did it. She's now tied herself completely to Biden's economic record and Biden's economic policies. She can't, at this point now, she can't separate herself from him. And so all Trump has to say, you know who's responsible for inflation? You know who cast the tie-breaking vote? She did. Do you know who's going to continue the policies of the last 3.5 years? She is. Is that what you want? More high gas prices, more food prices going up, higher grocery bills, higher rent, higher energy utility bills, more inflation. She blew it. 6:49 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, lot of reaction from you on the text line, messaging me, on emailing the Kuhner Man, and interesting perspectives. Honestly, very interesting. Couple lines are open, by the way, if you want to jump on. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, this is from 602. Jeff, I did get to watch several minutes of the Harris-Walz interview. And I agree with you that Kamala came off as very insecure. But there was something else that I noticed about her demeanor as I watched her face. She looked like she needed a drink. And I don't mean wanted one. I mean needed one. She appeared as someone who is used to regularly having those early afternoon drinks, but had to stay dry for the interview to be on her best game. I've seen that look before, Jeff, and I felt it was written all over her face. Let's just say she looked a little, quote-unquote, rough. Interesting. See, I got to tell you, you may be right. Please, 602, don't get me wrong. I didn't see that. Maybe others did. I'm not saying you're wrong, far from it. But I didn't see that. Now, maybe I'm looking for other things. I know she has a history of abusing alcohol. There's no question. And her staff says that she has a problem with the bottle. This has been widely now rumored, discussed, reported. So I'm not disagreeing with you on that, 602. What I saw, however, I didn't see that. What I saw, very insecure, way in over her head, not smart, and really very shallow, incredibly shallow, especially when it comes to policy and policy detail. I'm looking at her and I'm like, it's insulting to have someone as blatantly unqualified as her to be running for president of the United States. And it's no accident. All the polls, every poll showed this. After Biden was forced out, after they toppled him in a coup, there were 11 potential primary candidates among Democrat voters. Democrats. Kamala finished 11th out of 11. In other words, had they had any kind of an open competitive mini primary after they ousted Biden, Kamala wouldn't be the nominee. She wouldn't even be the top 10. She'd be, again, like in 2019, she'd be last. Dead last. And it's because when you listen to her talk after 5 minutes, you're like, this woman's got nothing but, she's got nothing between her ears. She's a complete lightweight. I'm calling it the way I see it. Agree, disagree. 617-266-6868. Okay, just very, very quick. This is from Rob on Messenger. He thinks, not in a complimentary way, but he thinks, no, she did what she needed to do. Jeff, karma, I like that. Jeff, karma didn't lose a single vote. Her voters are as stupid and shallow as she is. They chose her because she's a female, she's pro-baby killing, and she's not Trump. She may be silly, and she's certainly not heavy like Trump, meaning policy heavy. I agree. Rob, I think it's obvious. Look, these moonbats are voting for her for two reasons and two reasons alone. One, she's a radical on abortion. There's no question. She's an extremist on abortion. And two, she's not Trump. That's it. I mean, literally, that's it. That's it. Okay, this is from Brian. Jeff, I didn't watch the whole interview because it turned into a snooze fest. She seemed nervous, not confident. She also came across as confused. She reminds me of a person who tries too hard to have someone like her. Horrible. I agree. That's the other thing. I go, there's something really dislikable about her. And I think it's that. She's just, please like me. Please like me. I really want you to like me. She wants to be all things to all people. So, to the left, and to the environmentalists, and to the green lobby, I'm with you on climate change. Oh no, my values haven't changed. We have a climate crisis. But to win Pennsylvania, I'm for fracking. No, what I said, that was a few years ago. Forget what I said just a few years ago. No, I love fracking. The more oil and natural gas, the better. She talks out of both sides of her mouth. 617-266-6868 is the number. One last one. Jeff, it was a taped, short, 28-minute interview. Actually, I think technically in terms of content, it was 18 minutes, but let that go. This is from Eric. Kamala came across as if she was in the principal's office with her father, in parentheses, Tampon Tim, answering about lying. She looked so weak. Putin is on the phone with China and Iran, and they're laughing at America. That's the other thing, Eric. I completely agree with you. I look at her, and I go like, there's something so immature about both of them. Juvenile, adolescent. Like almost like they belong in high school. And you're right, there was that sense like she's in a principal's office. And like, okay, I got to do my interview now. I've been running from everybody for 35 days. And then there's the older guy, nodding his head up and down and, we're going to get through this together. And you watch this and you're like, Putin is looking at this and saying, this could be the next president of the United States? Xi Jinping is looking at her? The mullahs are looking at her? And they're going to say, we thought Biden was weak. Ay, ay, ay. She makes Biden look like Ronald Reagan. Agree, disagree. Did you watch the interview? And what did you make of Chameleon Kamala's performance? Tony in Gloucester. Thanks for holding, Tony, and welcome.
Yeah, Jeff, I watched it. She was reading notes off of the desk. Her eyes kept on going up and down like a ping pong ball.
Tony, can you hang on? There's a problem with the, actually it's not us. It's the service provider. We're going to come right back to you. We're going to try to we're going to try it again now to reconnect. Tony, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Hold on, Tony. You're coming in like you're a robot or something. So we're going to try to reconnect. Stay on, Tony. We're going to come to you. Tony, I agree with you. I constantly kept saying, why is she looking down? Why is she looking down? And the camera angle, why are they cutting her off like at her stomach? If you notice, why aren't they showing the desk in front of her? And the same thing popped in my mind. I'm like, is she reading notes? Because it's always eyes down, then up. Eyes down, and then up. Do we have Tony? Let's try. Tony, are you there?
Yes, how's this?
It's not you, Tony. We're going to try to sort it out, okay? Hang on, I promise. David in Brookline. Thanks for holding, David, and welcome.
Good morning from the People's Republic, where they're chanting Kamala, Kamala, that she did a great job. Jeff, it is, you can ask Sandy that because I know she's up in the Brookline area. It's uncanny how whenever I call in, almost always you guys make the point right before I get on that I wanted to make, but I had a couple. She appeared like if you were in 5th grade and you come into class on a Monday morning expecting to have a quiz, and there's a substitute teacher you can tell doesn't know anything, and they don't know they were supposed to give you a quiz. That's how the leaders of these other countries are looking at her, as this is their substitute teacher. Come on, Jeff. I keep saying every time, this is like the Twilight Zone. And the other thing I wanted to say, Jeff, look, President Trump, when he debates her, if he sticks to policy, they cannot debate with him on policy. Everything they say are lies and manipulations, and that includes the Inflation Creation Act, which is what he should talk about. Everything she said last night was a distortion, an alter reality. So the only thing they're going to hit President Trump on, probably on question one, do you think Kamala is black? Because you keep talking about it. President Trump should turn it right around very calmly and say, look, I don't care what somebody's race or gender or sex. It has nothing to do with somebody's ability to be the president. I was the president, and under us, we had peace, low inflation, we had a closed border. You guys on the Democrat side keep bringing this up. It has nothing to do with being president. What I was really trying to ask is, why does Kamala change her voice and change the way she behaves depending on the audience she's in front of? Just like President Biden, when he got in front of a group of fighter pilots, he said, I was a fighter pilot. When he was in front of a group of Puerto Rican people, he said he grew up in a Puerto Rican neighborhood. Jeff, President Trump needs to stay calm and just don't take the bait. Just turn it around and talk about when he was president, things were great. Don't make this about race, which has nothing to do with being the president.
Well, I agree. And David, I think the way, if I was advising him, I'd be very similar to the line that you're taking now, which is, paint her as chameleon Kamala. Define her. And the two things that really stand out about her is she's a complete phony, a complete fraud. She's a chameleon. She talks out of both sides of her mouth. Okay, she's a two-faced hypocrite. She's one thing to one crowd, and she's the exact opposite to another crowd. So you can't trust her as far as you can throw her. She's a liar, and she lies for money. That's what she does. And the second one is, if she does have a core, this woman is a radical. And there's no question. And that's why I go back to my original monologue over an hour ago, where for her to come out and again say that the central plank of her economic platform to tackle the economy and tackle inflation is price controls, and go on about so-called price gouging in the food industry, food price controls, the woman is a lunatic. She's a lunatic. If I'm Trump, to me, that's the election. I mean, to me, we don't even have to get to the border. You don't have to get to you don't have to even get there. You turn around and say, do you understand that you're going to be waiting in line into the parking lot to get food at the supermarket? Do you understand and that if this continues, you're going to have famine in this country? Everywhere price controls on food have been tried, it has been an unmitigated disaster. Disaster. And this idiot, after being told by hundreds of economists, liberal economists, conservative economists, centrist economists, across the entire spectrum, and nobody with a rudimentary understanding of economics says you put price controls on food. You're crazy. I'm telling you, you're crazy. That's like saying, really, you have an infection in your leg. Cut the leg off. What? Yeah, just cut it off. What? No, take antibiotics. Whatever. What are you, nuts? That's what she's saying. And she says it so glibly. That's what I find incredible, David. It's just the way she said it, just like it rolls off her lips like it's, $6,000 child tax credit, $25,000 credit for first-time home buyers, and we'll basically starve you. Yeah, that's my, Hey, if you don't eat, You can't pay for anything, right? David, I've never seen this woman that she's a heartbeat away from the presidency as it is now. Should send chills down the spine of every single American. So I'm with you. I would paint her as a chameleon. And that's what Trump really was getting at. He doesn't care. Look, you're black, you're not black. He doesn't care. His point was, and he's right, hey, she promoted and packaged herself in California as an Indian American ad nauseum because she wanted to get money from the Indian community. There was a big source of fundraising for her. She was never black. Never. Until it became politically expedient. That's what Trump really is saying. To the Indian community, she's Indian. To the black community, she's black. To the people of Pennsylvania, she's for fracking. To the media and the green lobby and the climate activists, she's against fracking. And that's how she is. In Arizona and Nevada, she wants a border wall. No. To liberals and the media, she wants a wide open border. She'll give you two contradictory answers, two contradictory policies. It just depends who's listening, who's in the crowd. And that's what Trump was getting at. If he can just really unmask her, I don't see how she wins. I really don't. David, thank you very much for that call. Bob in Medford, thanks for holding, Bob, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff.
Hi, Bob.
This is Bob from Medford. And,
yes, Bob.
I am also the gentleman who's running for United States Senate, but I wanted to just remind you, this conversation about her potentially being an alcoholic, it's quite ironic. Donald Trump has never even so much as sipped a glass of wine in his entire lifetime. Wow, what a difference, these lives have. Anyway, I wanted to point out, Jeff, to remind your listeners that on Tuesday is the most important election day in a very long time, and I am running for Senate. I'm the one candidate. If I know you remember very well, you asked the perfect question on the debate, and that was, are you going to vote for Donald Trump in November? And of course, I was the one that said, yes, I absolutely would. Of course I would, but it was Ian Kane and John Deaton who both said no, they were not going to vote for Donald Trump, and they each had their own, some say, crazy reason for not voting for Trump. And I just wanted to remind your listeners that Tuesday is the day to get the vote out for Antonellis.
We're talking with Bob Antonellis. Bob, what I'm going to urge all the listeners to do is to rehear that debate. They can go to wrko.com/Kuhner, Kuhn is in national ER, wrko.com/Kuhner, Kuhn is in national ER. Mike, Sandy, we still have the podcast up, correct, of that debate? Okay, so it was a 90-minute, very spirited debate between you, Bob Antonellis, John Deaton, and Ian Kane. And I asked you and Deaton and Kane almost every question on every major policy issue, including what they think of Trump and MAGA. And so if voters want to get informed about who they should vote for, just go to the podcast. It was a great, lively, spirited, entertaining debate, and everybody made their positions clear. Honestly, you don't need to go anywhere else. You go, you listen to the podcast this weekend, and then you make up your mind. Because, Bob, you're correct. On this, you're correct. You are the three, you were the only one that said you are going to vote for Trump in November. And don't take my word for it. The audience can hear it. Deaton said no. He gave his reasons. You can agree, disagree. You can hear what he had to say. Ian Kane, same thing. He said no. He's not voting for Trump. Now, they're not going to vote for Kamala either, but they're not voting for Trump. You are the only one of the three that is voting for Trump. So people can go to the podcast and decide for themselves who they want to vote for on Tuesday. All of the information they need on almost every major policy issue is there. Bob, thank you very much for that call. I appreciate it. 617-266-6868 is the number. Nick in Weymouth. Thanks for holding, Nick, and welcome.
Hey, how you doing, Jeff?
Good. How are you, Nick?
Great, thank you. Couple of things. I don't believe Dana Bastian, please correct me, asked the immortal Tim Waltz why he didn't go with his troops to Iraq. I don't even think that was even brought up, by the way. The other thing is, around 38 minutes into the interview, Harris bemoans the last 10 years, the last decade. We have to put that behind us, okay? I'm paraphrasing here. But, of course, rightly so, Bash says, well, wait a minute. You're part of that decade, the last 3.5 years, right? What Dana Bash didn't mention, the first 2 years of that decade were under Obama's kingdom. And what was happening in all that time? Well, the Republicans had 4 years of administration. They were crippled halfway into it in 2018 when they lost the House. Trump got impeached twice, and all of those machinations, right, go back to Obama and what he and Biden and their administration was doing to Trump behind the scenes before and after the election with the Trump won and during his administration. Sure, the last 10 years were horrific, but the Democrats controlled most of that, right? And Bash should have brought that up, too. She's not going to mention Obama, of course, but what I'm saying is, how dare she talk about and she said that was an era when it paid to be beating down on your opponent. All they did was, and she's obviously referring to Trump, right, beating down on his opponents. But all that administration did, the 2 years of Obama and all the way through, and the lawfare and all the crap that we've seen, who's kidding who? They're the ones that ruin the country.
Oh, you read my mind. Nick, you read my mind. No, it's obvious what her answer was or what she meant. Like, in other words, let's turn a page on the Trump era. Okay, well, you want to believe that. That's your right. But who's beating him? Why? Because he beats down his opponents. What have you guys been doing to him for the last 10 years? All you've been doing is beating the guy down. You phony, you fraud, you. 718 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, my friends, a lot of reaction now to the first interview by Comrade Kamala, along with, of course, her running mate, Tiananmen Tim Waltz. So, this is now what we're finding out. Apparently, CNN had 41 minutes of this joint interview, but they only released 18 minutes. What are they hiding? What are they hiding? That's another 23 minutes that's unaccounted for. What are they hiding? What's in those other 23 minutes? And already there are leaks coming out from CNN that apparently she didn't know how to answer the fracking question. And she didn't want to answer the fracking question. And that she mumbled and she stumbled and they had to recut it and recut it and recut it and recut it. And that's the other lie. I mean, again, I came in starting the show, laughing because that was a joke of an interview. Again, there's no media anymore. There really isn't. Yes, it's propaganda. They're almost like glorified public relations shops. That's what they really have become now. We do PR for the Democratic Party. That's what we do. This is CNN. Whatever. We're MSNBC. Or we're ABC News. PR for the Dems. That's our specialty. Now, you already have CNN right after the interview. They had a panel led by David Axelrod, Obama's top advisor, and they already were in major damage control mode. They're claiming she was dynamic. She was intelligent. She was presidential. She was charming. What outstanding personality. Oh my God. This is the next president of the United States. She hit it out of the park. While everyone else, in other words, people, tethered to reality, are looking at this and saying, even when you've edited her, even when you've kept out 23 minutes, even as you try to desperately give her softball after softball after softball, they still look horrible. And to me, what was really disingenuous, and you can go back, just watch the interview on YouTube or wherever you can get it. CNN keeps pretending it's a live interview. So, and Mike was telling me, he goes, I was laughing. I go, Mike, what's so funny? He goes, well, watch. Dana Bash, during the CNN hour special, keeps, she's live, and she says, hi, blah, 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 blah. I'm going to be asking them these questions. Let's go back to my live interview with Vice President Harris and Governor Walz. What do you mean? It's a taped interview. Nothing is live here. You're live now. How could you be live with them in a separate room, sitting at a table when you're standing and talking to us on the screen? Like, how stupid do you think we are? So they tried to sell it as a live, spontaneous interview. It wasn't. It was pre-taped. And now we find out it was heavily edited. And now we find out that there were 23 minutes that they refused to show the American people. Release the unofficial transcript. Release the entire interview. All 41 minutes. We deserve to know what her answers were. All of them. Not packaged by CNN. Not edited by CNN. Not branded by CNN. But the full 41 minutes. And let me just make one last point, and I want to go back to the phone lines. She's struggling with CNN? I'm telling you, even if she lived in communist Russia, in the Soviet Union, if you can't do a decent interview with Pravda or Izvestia, you're not fit for the Politburo. Like, what I mean is, even communists had standards. Okay, comrade, now you do interview. Okay, you want to be premier of Mother Russia? Okay, you must do interview with Pravda. Pravda ask you, they give you questions ahead of time. All you have to do now is, as they say, do your homework. And then they ask you a question, you answer, and we make you Soviet premier. You come on Politburo, and we make you powerful. You become now face of Mother Russia. And she's, by the way, it's been confirmed, she had notes. She had notes. She was caught. She had notes. Because I remember I'm looking at this, I'm like, why is she always looking down? And why did they cut the camera a certain way where you can't see what's in front of her? I go, like, the camera angle is really strange. Well, now we know why. So, she had the questions ahead of time. She had the answers in front of her. She had notes in front of her. And this woman still bombed the interview. You can't get more, I'm sorry, but you can't get more stupid. I don't know what else to tell you. Now you know why. Now you know why they're hiding her from the press. People like me have been saying for, how many is it now? With almost 40 days. What was it, 39 days? I'm like, why won't she take questions? She's got nothing to fear from the media. They're not going to ask her any tough, hard questions. She can't even handle a softball interview. I mean, here. It's like a baby, playing pitching cat. Here it is, okay? Temi, I'm going to throw you the softball now, right in the middle of the plate, okay? It's coming right now. Here it is, Tim, here you go. Here it's coming. You missed it again? Yeah, this is pathetic. Honestly, it's pathetic. And this is what I told Grace last night. I said, you want my honest feedback? This is insulting. The interview is insulting. The entire Kamala Harris campaign, the candidacy, all of it is insulting to the American people, to the American voter. It's degrading. It's degrading. This is just degrading. You're selling us someone who clearly is not qualified to be president. Clearly. Who is way in over her head. Way out of her league and out of her depth. And, and you're trying to claim you're saving democracy? You are destroying all the norms of democracy right in front of our eyes. She is the biggest phony I have ever seen in American politics. Your call's next. I'm just telling you, they don't pay me enough. Bill Allen, if you're listening, I need a raise. I mean, that was Chinese water torture last night. Holy shamoly. 7:32 here on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer. So, yes, I watched the interview, so you didn't have to watch the interview. You see what I do for you? You see the pain and suffering I endure for all of you, the great audience of Kuhner Country? It was a painful thing to watch. It was boring. It was horrible. It was insulting. It was vague. It was vacuous. It was superficial. At times it was childish. It was fawning. It was sycophantic. I'll get to that a little bit later where, Dana Bash at the end. It's embarrassing. Just gushing over Kamala and her nieces. And this is such an historic moment. And this picture, I'll get into it, the picture of the niece with Kamala and how this is going viral. And then, you've got Tim Walz and they roll out his son again and him crying at the convention. And how does that make you feel as a dad? And I'm like, boy, you're really selling these people hard, huh? Boy, are you selling. Are you selling? 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, here is what Vivek Ramaswamy put out on X in the wake of that, really, honestly, I think a disaster of an interview. In 2019, Kamala Harris said she would absolutely ban fracking. At present, she says she won't ban fracking. Tonight on CNN, she said her position on a fracking ban hasn't changed. Which is all true, by the way. It's all true. She said she'll ban it. She says she'll never ban it. And then she says, I've been consistent. I've never changed my position ever. That's literally what she said last night. So Vivek goes on.
There's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking. So, yeah, and starting with what we can do on day one around public lands, right? And then there has to be legislation. But yes, and this is something I've taken on in California. I have a history of working on this issue.
All right. So there you have it in her own words. Okay? There it is. So that was in 2019. So now, of course, a complete and utter 180 degrees, a complete flip-flop, right? But then she also said, so because to her credit, Dana Bash says to her, okay, but why the change? Okay, can you explain to us, why did you change? She's even trying to feed her the answer to the question as she's asking it. I'm telling you, she says, I can play the cut. She says, well, was it experience that made you change? Was it the fact that you're running for president? Is that making you change? In other words, this is right. This is how we're going to explain this, how we're going to spin this to the American people. But no, Comrade Kamala being Comrade Kamala, not too bright up there, turns around and says, no, my position has never changed. I've always had the same position. So she denies changing her position. So here's what Vivek concludes. At least one of those three statements has to be false. He goes, that's not a partisan point. It's just logic. Yeah. Okay, I'm for X. No, I'm against X. I've never changed my position. What? Okay. one of those is false. Like one of those, you made a mistake. Which one is it? I mean, just hello. Hey, she's not Donald Trump, and she's a radical on abortion. That's all the Bills and Sudburys care about. Everything else is just conversation. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, did you watch the interview? And did it help or hurt Chameleon Kamala? I'd like to hear from you, Kuhner Country. The punditry, the media class, the establishment, gushing. They say this is presidential, that she was energetic, dynamic, intelligent, classy, polished, that this interview shows conclusively that this woman is ready to be the next president of the United States. What I saw was the very opposite. In fact, to be brutally honest, and when I'm wrong, I admit it. I was wrong, and the Kamala Harris campaign has been right. They should be hiding her. If I had someone as a candidate who is this bad and who can't even answer the most basic questions from the friendliest sycophantic media you could find, you're right. I'm wrong. You're right. Hide her. Hide her. You've been right to hide her. And just at this point, you keep hiding her. Have her do that one debate September 10, and that's it. No, if I were them, hide her. No more interviews until November 5th. And by the way, no policy yet, still on her presidential website. They want us to vote for someone, and we don't know where they stand on so many issues. And the Democrats are saying they're here to save democracy. 617-266-6868. Rob in Braintree. Thanks for holding, Rob, and welcome.
Jeff. Rob,
how are you, Rob?
Burke here, the only Trump candidate in Massachusetts 8. No Johnny-come-latelys, no never-Trumpers, whatever these people. I'm the only one in the state of Massachusetts 2 years in a row that have primaries in the 8th congressional district. In 22, there was one. Now there's two, Jeff.
Rob, did you watch? I know you're busy campaigning, but did you have a chance to watch the interview? And what did you think of Comrade Kamala and Tiananmen Tim?
Watched it and turned the volume off, Jeff, because what you do with TV is you watch it, you don't listen to it. And I was watching her. She is definitely a mental person, okay? And the whole thing is just ridiculous, but that's the way these people operate. It's all about money and power, and she doesn't know anything. She is a dummy. I'm talking about politically. I don't know her personally, but she's probably a nutbag anyway. She went to school. She lived in Canada, Jeff. Did you know her?
I mean, Rob, there are, what is it, almost 40 million people in Canada?
No, in Quebec. In Quebec. Up in Beaconsfield, Jeff. I played hockey as a kid. And so hey,
we all don't know each other up there in Canada. No, I never bumped into her, Rob.
Phonies, though. All of them are phonies. You ask them about anything, they're all phonies. I would never go down these rabbit holes. I would just stand there, and like I said, what I'm going to do, Jeff, and I'll let you go. I appreciate your time, is this. I'm going to close that border. I'm going to seal that border. I'm going to detain these people, and I'm going to kick them all out. And then I'm going to give everybody in the 8th Congressional District a tax cut.
God bless you. God bless you, Rob. Thank you very much for that call. 617-266-6868. Just very quick to bounce off of Rob. This was another thing that really stood out. And I know Sandy and I talked about it just before we went on the air. She wouldn't really answer any questions. It was amazing. She just danced and equivocated. I'm like, this woman is incapable of answering a direct question with a direct answer. And that's the mark of a complete phony. Just a compulsive liar. Just like, now I know why she picked Waltz. Birds of a feather flock together. 617-266-6868. Roger in the great state of Illinois. Thanks for holding, Roger, and welcome.
I'd like to see the Republicans stage a debate in which the moderator asks Kamala a question and then the answer is given by one of her videos that talks to that subject, and then they ask Trump the same question and he gives a live answer. I think that would be very, very revealing.
Oh, you're right. Oh, Roger, you're absolutely correct. But you don't have to even get that sophisticated about it. And you're right. Don't get me wrong. If I were Trump, I'd say 2-minute answers. She doesn't, Roger. She doesn't have 2 minutes in her on almost any question. That's what I found remarkable about last night's interview. The woman, or she just starts piling on the BS. The word salads. The significance of the passage of time, and yesterday was yesterday, and today is today's yesterday, and, when she starts, talking, gibberish. But 2 minutes, she can't fill it. Winning. 7:49 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer, cleaning up the liberal bull. Okay, as we head into the Labor Day weekend, Trump now has the wind clearly in his back after yesterday's interview. I think it's been going on for a while. The endorsement by Robert F. Kennedy Jr., then by Tulsi Gabbard, obviously Elon Musk as well. Many disillusioned, disaffected Democrats are now crossing the aisle, and they are bolting to Trump, MAGA, and the Republican Party. And last night's really pathetic interview, it was empty. It was full of platitudes. She came across in many ways as unprepared. She needed notes. And the questions were even given to her ahead of time. And even then, they had to edit out 23 minutes of a 41-minute interview, only airing 18 minutes in a desperate attempt to prop her up. This campaign, the wheels are coming off. She can't do this. I mean, they're going to try to carry her to the finish line. That's what the media does. But that was a pathetic performance yesterday. Agree, disagree. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, you can text the Kuhner Man, 70470. This is from a very good friend of mine, a huge, super fan of the show, who's been in radio production, 50 years? 40, 50 years? Basically forever. So I really trust him on this sort of stuff. Jeff, after being in production for so long, I immediately noticed the edits that CNN made to that interview. There were lots of them. If this is the best the Democrats have, then September 10th's debate should be very interesting. Once again, I think Trump should throw her several curves by asking her questions when it's his time to speak. Go on the offensive. Trump should be asking her the questions that the moderators won't. She can't handle them. She will melt down. She will not. I mean, she'll have word salads. She'll ramble incoherently. You can tell. You press her on, and what I mean by pressing is just throw out a couple of tough questions or point out some obvious contradictions or lies, and she wilts. She's not ready for prime time. It's obvious. Okay. This is a really, really good text from 781. Jeff, You can hate Donald Trump all you want. You can vote blue no matter for which person. I think it's crazy and self-destructive, but even so, you're an, in caps, embarrassing person if you pretend Kamala Harris didn't appear to be impossibly stupid in her open notes, edited interview with regime media. I could not agree with you more. This is what I mean. Even if you're a liberal, even if you're a Democrat, even if you're a progressive, and that's why many now are just bolting to Trump. I like that phrase, impossibly stupid. Like, you're embarrassing yourself. She had the notes. She was given the questions. It was a clearly edited, scripted interview with regime propaganda media. I mean, come on, man. My Ashton could have done a better job. Seriously. And this is the best that she can do? And think of the message that this sends around the world. It's a frightening message. Oh, I'm so scared. It's my first interview as the nominee. Timmy, can you be beside me? Tampon Tim, can you be beside me, Tampon? Hold my hand. What are you going to do face to face with Putin? What are you going to do face to face with Xi Jinping? What are you going to do when you got to go toe to toe with the Ayatollahs or Kim Jong-un or whoever? They're going to eat us alive. 617-266-6868. I want to read this because I'm getting so many of these type of comments. And it's a sheriff, a guy I really respect. He's in law enforcement for a long, long time. Many of you, I'm not just saying it's coming from law enforcement people. Many of you in the audience are saying the exact same thing. Hundreds, in fact. I've gotten emails, texts, and messages since the show began. But this is a friend. I trust him. I trust his judgment. And I want to run this by you. Jeff, Comrade Kamala looks like a heavy drinker to me. As a former sheriff, I saw a lot of alcoholics going through withdrawals, and her eyes and her facial expressions tell me she gets drunk every night. I've had a few people, I read another one from earlier, saying, Jeff, she looked to me like she's used to having a couple of drinks in the afternoon. She had to go dry for this interview. And if you look at her face and you look at her expressions and you look at the way she conducted herself, boy, she needed that drink. She wanted that drink. She needed that drink. Did you get that sense as well? I'm just curious. 617-266-6868. Lines are loaded. John in Lowell. Thanks for holding, John, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hi, John.
Jeff, the problem with most liberals, and I love this saying, is they are educated beyond their intelligence. This woman has wet brain. I'm glad you let in with that. I see it. I know people. I go to little meetings, once in a while. I see this every day. And Jeff's not going to have two things. Why has it never been brought up that the cocaine in the White House is possibly hers? No one's even brought that up as an idea, Jeff.
That's a great point.
All right, now, Jeff, did you hear what Jeff Cavell said?
No.
He was asked, how many people do you think will watch this? It's not going to, this and that and the other thing. And he says, the numbers will be huge. You know why? Because Americans love a train wreck, Jeff. That's James Carville speaking. So what's Trump going to do to her? If she's on friendly, she's behind enemy lines. She's in the bunker with these people, Jeff. When he gets his hands on her, Jeff, other than the steal, it's all over.
John, I agree with you on every point. Can I just come back to your original point? I'm just curious. You're saying it's a tell. Now, what, that she abuses alcohol? or that what, John, that she's been a drinker, a very heavy drinker for many years?
Someone is look in their eyes. They're empty, Jeff. Take a look at her eyes. No matter what she's doing or saying, her eyes are empty, which means her brain is empty, Jeff.
Interesting. Interesting. John, have a wonderful weekend. And please call more often, John. We miss you. John, God bless you and thank you for that call. 617-266-6868. Look, can I throw this out there? If you're a recovering alcoholic, former alcoholic, whatever, and God bless you, okay? Because I do believe in redemption. I really do. Do you see signs of alcoholism in her? I'd love for you to call into the show and get your perspective, because it's of all the text messages I'm getting, if there's one dominant theme, this is the one. It's like, Jeff, I'm telling you, she's on the sauce. Like, yeah? No, I'm telling you, she wants to be on the sauce, and she's, whatever, she's, she can't wait for that drink, Jeff. And so if any of you is an alcoholic, recovering alcoholic, whatever, you attend AA meetings, do you see signs of alcohol abuse in last night's interview or in general when Kamala speaks? 617-266-6868. I'd love to hear from you. Bob in Marblehead. Thanks for holding, Bob, and welcome.
Yeah, Jeff, couple of comments. As we would say in the Navy, this gal, California airhead, doesn't have a full sea bag. In fact, I don't think she even has a sea bag. She came across as embarrassing. I just can't imagine this person on the world stage. And a good senior chief friend of mine reminded me of two things. One, on the vice president nominee. First of all, he made all of those trips to China. How the devil did he get a clearance? I don't know what the Army's doing these days for clearances, but I can't imagine if I or the senior chief went to China that many times and still maintaining a clearance. I just can't imagine it. Second of all, that command sergeant major rank is only temporary. You cannot use it because once you leave the command or that particular title, that goes away. You just become a sergeant major, if in fact that was his rank when he retired. So these both of them are just bogus as far as I'm concerned.
Bob, and just to add to what you're saying, this is the other thing I found I just was shaking my head, astonishing about the interview. So she asked, Waltz a few questions. Most of it was directed at Chameleon Kamala. But the few that she sent off to Tampon Tim. So she says, well, you've been caught in lies. And she mentioned, the stolen valor. He claimed, that he was in war zones when he wasn't, that he carried these weapons of war. And then she just briefly touched about his, DUI in Nebraska. And what was incredible was he didn't take ownership. He didn't take responsibility. He didn't admit to anything. He was like, well, people know who I am. Well, people know my record. Like it was like he never lied. Like he's almost like, but she's like, well, no, but you did lie. Like, come on, let's be honest. You lied. And he just brushed it aside. Like it's no big deal. Like he lies so often. It's as if why are you even mentioning this to me? I lie like I breathe. So what's so big deal? And this is what I want to ask you, Bob, because you're right. How could this guy have gone over 30 times to communist China while still in the National Guard? How could this guy have taught for a year in communist China? You have to be a communist sympathizer or fellow traveler to teach students in China. And then he comes back and he openly praises the Chinese communist system. And by the way, is an avowed admirer of Mao. Mao Zedong, the greatest mass murderer of all time. So you're completely right, Bob. Here's what I don't get. He's caught, 96 miles an hour in a 55 mile per hour zone. He's drunk as a skunk. Okay, and we're talking, this is a DUI. Forget, the speeding is bad enough, but I mean, he is hammered to the point that they had to take him to the hospital. The police took him to the hospital to clean him out because he was that drunk. He lies about it, saying that he was never drunk, that he drove himself to the hospital, which is a lie, and that, no, he didn't. The reason why he was evading the police as they tried to pull him over, he's deaf. Bob, he's deaf. He's deaf because he was in so many war zones, Bob, that, the shelling and the shells and the artillery and the explosions, it kind of damaged his ears, Bob. So his claim was, no, he's deaf. Now, remember just, 20-some years ago? A DWI almost sank George W. Bush in the 2000 election. I remember when DWIs were like a big deal in this country. Now, with this guy, nothing. He lies about it, lies blatantly about it, nothing. Dana Bash is like, well, okay, so people can just judge you on your record and your character. Okay, yeah, all right, thank you. Bob, how are we going to, are we lowering standards now to such a degree that almost anybody, if you're a Democrat, can get into the White House now? Even somebody, as you point out, who's essentially an agent of communist China?
It's amazing to me. I mean, I don't know what's going on in the Army these days. Either they're so hard up. I had a good friend who was a colonel. Boy, I would have asked him. I said, "Is this acceptable in the Army?" I mean, if somebody in my unit pulled half of the stuff, they would be bounced right out. I mean, I just standards. Yeah, they maybe there's some, but they're so low that it's just embarrassing. I'm embarrassed for the Army and the National Guard with this guy. I don't know what to say. I'm almost speechless.
I know, Bob. You and I are so simpatico. I got to tell you, man. You and I must have been separated at birth, Bob. That's all I can say. Because you're so echoing. I'm like, I'm embarrassed. Like, I'm alone in my living room watching the debate. Sorry, the interview. Forgive me. I'm watching the interview last night. And I'm like, why am I embarrassed? Like I haven't done anything. But like, I'm embarrassed for my country. I'm embarrassed for the vets. I'm embarrassed for the voters. Like, I'm embarrassed. I'm like, no, please don't show this. Like, I don't show it. I don't want the world to see this. Like, really, like, to see these two clowns. Like, really, I'm like, you're seriously going to run her? And the media's seriously going to carry her? Bob, if they do another interview, they're crazy. You got to hide them. I mean, I'm just, look, they should run somebody who's half decent. But if this is the two that they're going to push, no more interviews. Because you're right. It's embarrassing. Bob, phenomenal call. Phenomenal. 617-266-6868. Okay, Mike, Sandy, it's 8:05. Are we doing Kuhner's call log or? All right, I saved you guys. See, if I hadn't said anything, we would have gone through the entire segment and not done it. No, that's okay. I don't need a raise. It's what I do. All right. We should have done this 6 minutes ago, but better late than never. Caller of the week, Kuhner's call log.
It's time for Kuhner's call log, where we showcase our favorite caller from the week.
I can hear you. Can you hear me? Thanks for holding, Doug.
Kamala Harris, she doesn't want to debate. And I think what the Trump organization needs to do is put ads together out there and target the misinformation voters and show them, is this the type of person that you want running the country?
I mean, if she doesn't want to debate Trump, what makes you think she's going to ever be able to do anything with a world leader? They'll walk all over her. They'll just trample her. And unfortunately, the misinformation voter isn't seeing this. But I think if you can get some ads together to show what Kamala is all about, I think a lot of voters out there might actually have the light bulb go on in their head, and they may realize that, voting for her is a big mistake. Forget about the woman thing, okay? This is a leader of the free world. There's so much responsibility that the average person that thinks that she could handle this needs to be re-educated. And it has to be done quickly. Because I'll tell you, if this woman ever became president, it's going to be an absolute disaster.
And next week, it could be you on Kuhner's Call Log.
Please, don't be a stranger. Call again. Again, congratulations. Really, I got to say, I don't envy, all kidding aside, I don't envy Mike and Sandy because we have so many outstanding callers. I'm like, I don't know how you pick one. I really don't. So again, and to all of you, Kuhner Country, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Really, you take this show to a different level because of our callers. I hear producers from around the country tell me, how do you do it, Kuhner man? I'm like, I don't know. I'm blessed. But you truly are the best in the business. Okay, 617-266-6868. Okay, so I asked for people who either are alcoholics or, recovering alcoholics. And again, really, I truly believe in redemption. So I don't want you to think I'm picking on you or singling you out or trying to embarrass you because I'm not. I do believe in second chances. Trust me, I know family members. And they've led wonderful lives. They realized that there was that this alcoholism was killing them. And they got help. They dried out. They got clean. They got sober. And they've had very successful lives. So, but I'm just asking for signs, if you can point out signs. And I'm going to go to Dave, I promise. But this is from Sharon. So, and she says she grew up with an alcoholic father. So, Sharon, this is what she sent to me on Messenger. Jeff, I grew up with an alcoholic father, and I am very used to seeing the signs of quote-unquote withdrawal. Kamala Harris's tone, mannerisms, demeanor, all point to her experiencing the quote-unquote DTs, or what I refer to as the quote-unquote shakes. She clearly has a drinking problem, which explains her incoherent speech and fearless contradictions. Interesting. Dave in Waltham. Thanks for holding, Dave, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Dave. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, and I love you in a non-sexual way, my friend. So, I am an alcoholic. I am in recovery. I go to a AA meeting every day, 6 a.m.
God bless you.
It started right.
God bless you.
80 people there this morning. But back to Kamala, a big thing about alcoholism is fear. We were fearful people, and we didn't have a higher power or God in our lives. So I think she's a very fearful person because she doesn't know who she is.
Oh, Dave, can you please hang on? Please, I hate to do this to you. I'm up against a hard break. I want to ask you, what are some of the signs that you see in her of alcoholism? More next. 8:20 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer. Okay, let's go right back to Dave in Waltham. Dave is an alcoholic, obviously a recovering alcoholic. He goes to AA every day, every morning. God bless him. He's clean and sober, thank the Lord. And Dave, you were saying you could tell some of the signs that Kamala is a heavy drinker. Dave, could you please elaborate? Hello, Dave? Dave, go ahead.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you, Dave. Please, go ahead.
Okay, all right. So, a lot of alcoholics have withdrawals. a little bit shaking, nervousness. Again, fear is a big factor for many alcoholics, fear of everything. And I think Kamala is a very fearful person, and she's not comfortable with who she is or her own skin. She's, the chameleon, right? So she hasn't taken, ownership. And it's hard. I mean, she grew up in a mixed race family, moving around. Her parents were Marxists. There's a lot of action going there. And so, alcoholism is an ism, and she smoked a lot of weed. So addiction can be anything, really. I mean, it can be weed, booze, sex, food, and it's a lot about your thinking, your mentality. And I struggled for many, many years. I grew up in the 70s, party hardy and work hard. I was successful, big functioning alcoholic, but, and her disconnection, because she's probably thinking about having a drink and she can't put her thoughts together. And if you're continuing to use substances, your synapses and your connections aren't firing. You got to get that neural system back intact by abstinence. And she doesn't have any faith, I don't think. I mean, has anybody ever asked her what she believes in? I mean, hey, I don't know.
Interesting. Interesting. Dave, did you watch the debate at all? I'm sorry. Did you watch the interview at all last night?
Ew. I struggled to, yes. I thought Dana, all these liberals have these weird names. It's Dana, isn't it? Not Dana, whatever. No. She's often referred to as Dana, but apparently she insists on being called Dana. So it's Dana. Either way, but yeah, go ahead. But I believe it is she wants to be called Dana. But anyway, go ahead. Liberalism is a mental disorder. Anyway, so she did ask, I thought, a couple tough questions, but again, it's scripted. She had notes. I mean, come on. America has to wake up. She was placed in there, parachuted in her, the last choice. I mean, Obama put her in there for Biden. Who knew this was going to happen? I mean, the media, there's no journalism anymore except for, some, they cover up their Democrat operatives, and that's why. I mean, the censorship. And what about, asking, hard questions? We can't have this happen, I mean,
agree. No, Dave, I agree. Dave, I really appreciate it. Look, I think you hit the nail right on the head. Right on the head. And you're right. She is very empty. You can see that, very hollow on the inside. And I think booze, weed, drugs, I think that fills her up in her mind. And you can tell the constant word salads, how incoherent she is. She often, her eyes, the emptiness in her eyes. There's something about her facial expressions. It's just hard to pin down, but you look at her and you're like, is she on the sauce? Or is she craving, is she craving for a drink right now? Because you're right. It's like she seems often distracted, as if, her mind is, I want that drink. God, I want that drink. I want it now. I want it now. Dave, thank you very much. And please, Dave, keep staying sober, my friend. God bless you, Dave. And don't be a stranger. Call again. Look, let me tell you this, okay? As Biden would say, no joke. All kidding aside, there was a big profile piece in the Washingtonian magazine. Look it up. Don't take my word for it. Do you know she can give not just 2-minute answers, 5-minute, 10, 15, 20-minute answers, where she's a real expert? Wine. According to the Washingtonian, they recently did a huge profile on her. And apparently they say she's well known in Washington for going to the most exotic, exclusive, high-end wine bars. And that she knows her wine. They go, Kamala often holds functions where she's drinking, a lot of wine. She knows California wine, Chilean wine, Australian wine, French wine, Italian wine, that she loves to drink it all. And apparently she knows all of the different varieties of wines. Red wine, white wine, rosé wine, down to I'm not kidding, the barrels that the wine is, held in or preserved in. She even knows the different kinds of wood, like oak, that's best to help ferment the wine. That she can go on about wine for hours. So that was Biden's big mistake. He shouldn't have made her the border czar. He should have made her the wine czar. Because that's about the only thing she knows, is how to booze it up. 8:31 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, this was Kamala Harris, Comrade Kamala, in Georgia at a rally. I believe it was after she did her interview. It was pre-taped with Dana Bash, CNN, along with obviously Tampon Tim Walz. Now, it aired later. Now, again, just to repeat this, CNN repeatedly lied yesterday. They always lie. But then they were caught blatantly lying. They kept referring to it as a live interview. It wasn't a live interview. It was clearly pre-taped. Now, I don't know if she had a drink afterwards, the interview. I don't know, but here is her on the stump speaking. By the way, they found out that the audience that was there in Savannah, Georgia, bussed in. The crowd that was there was bussed in, some of them 3 or 4 hours away. So the Harris campaign has been caught repeatedly paying people to show up at their events or bussing them in from all over because there's no genuine grassroots support. It's all AstroTurf. It's fake, just like her. Well, you tell me. Listen now to this word salad. Roll cut 12, Mike.
He even called for termination of the United States Supreme, the supreme land of our nation, the United States Constitution.
Okay, I think she's trying to say he's calling for the termination of the Supreme Court. She couldn't say Supreme Court. Again, the brain is misfiring. She couldn't say Supreme Court. She either forgot it, or she can't say it, or whatever. Now, by the way, it's a complete lie. When did Donald Trump ever call for the Supreme Court to be abolished? I mean, they just lie and lie. He's going to cut Social Security and Medicare. That's a lie. He's going to unleash the National Guard on the American people. That's a lie. He supports Project 2025. That's a lie. He's going to be a dictator. That's a lie. So now apparently he wants to just eliminate the Supreme Court. Just get rid of it. Well, no. The ones who want to pack the Supreme Court is her and Biden. And she's running on packing the Supreme Court. But let that go. Let me play it again. And this happens with her all the time. Now, either, as someone put it, I think it was Bob, she's embarrassingly stupid. In other words, really, she's just not that bright. Or, drinky, she's on the sauce. It's either A or it's B. Roll cut 12, Mike.
He even called for termination of the United States Supreme, the supreme land of our nation, the United States Constitution.
Ay. Okay, back to the interview. Very quickly, I want to play one more cut. I'm going to go right back to the phone lines. There were many word salads. Again, it was a 41-minute interview. CNN edited it down to 18 minutes. So they sliced out 23 minutes. Again, I want to see the unofficial transcript. I want to see what they're covering up. I'm telling you, it's a horror show. That's why they only showed 18 minutes. Scripted, edited, with the regime media, Dana Bash, asking every question and giving her the questions ahead of time. And she had notes. She keeps looking down. She had notes. And there were still word salads after word salads after word salads. You tell me if you can make sense of this. Roll cut 11. Mike.
How should voters look at some of the changes that you've made, that you've explained some of here in your policy? Is it because you have more experience now and you've learned more about the information? Is it because you were running for president in a Democratic primary? And should they feel comfortable and confident that what you're saying now is going to be your policy moving forward?
Dana, I think the most important and most significant aspect of my policy perspective and decisions is my values have not changed. You mentioned the Green New Deal. I have always believed, and I have worked on it, that the climate crisis is real, that it is an urgent matter to which we should apply metrics that include holding ourselves to deadlines around time. We did that with the Inflation Reduction Act. We have set goals for the United States of America and by extension the globe around when we should meet certain standards for reduction of greenhouse gas emissions as an example. That value has not changed.
What? What? The question originally was, you flip-flopped. You've changed. You were for banning fracking. Now you say you're for fracking. You were against a border wall. Now you say you're for a border wall. You've been for open borders all the way until now. Now you want border security. You can go just issue. You wanted to defund the police. Now you're pro law and order. You wanted to abolish ICE. Now you say you won't abolish ICE. So, Dana Bash is like, look, it's contradiction, flip-flop, 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 flip-flop. So notice she's trying to almost give her the answer in the question. She's like, okay, is it because now you're just more experienced? Now, right away, I'd be saying, like, what, from last month? Because these were all positions she held until, like maybe 4 or 5 weeks ago? Until they overthrew Biden? Okay, but anyway, let that go. Let that go. Let it go. She's basically saying, come on, like, right? You're growing. It's experience. This is what it is. Is it because you were running in a primary? In other words, yeah, maybe, Dana, I was running in a primary and maybe I kind of, over tilted it. Maybe went a little bit too far on the left. But, I want you to know that I'm more of a moderate and I'm more of a centrist. So Dana is trying to like, this is how you're going to answer it, right? Right? And she goes off thinking that she's brilliant. Well, look at the Green New Deal. My values haven't changed. I believe in timetables. And what? She never answered a single question head on. Head on. And if the media is calling this a success, I don't want to see what a failure is. Verna in Arlington. Thanks for holding, Verna, and welcome.
Hey, thank you very much, Jeff.
Hi, Verna.
Before I get on to, I was going to reflect on the interview, but the subject you brought up about sobriety, I'll just put my own words in on there, too. One of the reasons people may not call in and acknowledge their sobriety or recovery is because there's a tradition issue. I'll just read it real quickly. Tradition 11. Our public relations policy is based on attraction rather than promotion. We need always maintain personal anonymity at the level of press, radio, film, television, and other public media of communication. So a lot of times people won't acknowledge their belonging on the public level, so just to make you aware of that. I will acknowledge I've had sobriety since, excuse me, I'm a little bit nervous, January 1st, 1986. Myself, God just, really graced me with that as well.
God bless you.
And one of the things,
God bless you,
thank
Verna.
you. Yeah, both with alcohol, food, and cigarettes, the whole 9 yards. And But I also want to say in my step work, so one of the things about Kamala Harris that I can identify with and relate to is that nervous giggle. I used to have a lot of that nervous giggle. And I would embarrass my brother-in-law, my oldest brother-in-law, because a lot of times there would be clashes between my husband and him, and I would be sitting there kind of nervous, so I would have this nervous giggle. And one of the amends I did to my oldest brother-in-law was to write him a letter. He had moved to California, away from the dysfunctional family, and acknowledge to him and apologize to him for that nervous giggle, because he would get really upset with me. So that's a thing there too. And as well as I see on her face, I see nervousness and tension, and you can see that, like, she needs an addictive release, and that sort of thing. So, yeah, I mean, it's there. I'm glad to hear people calling in and acknowledging, and apparently she's on record as being well known as a person that needs Savado, like Pelosi was too. So, in relation to the interview last night, I was really shocked too when I saw it. I mean, she just never answered any question directly at all. She skirted around everything. One of the very first question that Dana Bash asked, which I thought was really interesting because she repeated it, she said, when you get into office, when and if you're elected, when you get into office, what will you do on your first day? And she skirted it. She just talked about the issues. And then Dana Bash asked again, well, what will you do on your first day? And she again skirted around the issue and just said, well, we're going to be working on this and that issue. And then one other question, I don't know if you already reflected on this because I had to be off the radio for a few minutes around 7, there was a question that she was asked about, had to do with the economy. And she just kept doubling down on, well, we have to work on that, and we have to get that better. We have to make it better, because it was reflecting on the Biden-Harris administration.
Oh, brilliant. Verna, I think you really hit the nail on the head. No, I was struck by that as well. What are you going to do on day one? And Dana Bash kept, the follow-up. And she just kept saying, well, I'll tell you exactly what she said coming back. But it was a non-answer. It was a complete non-answer. The woman was utterly unprepared. 8:49 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, just very quickly, because Verna, I thought, asked some really, really good questions and made some really excellent points about Kamala Harris. What was very striking, okay, I mentioned it in the opening monologue, but I want to repeat it. She doubled down on her so-called price gouging plan, i.e. price controls for food and food production, which is an unmitigated disaster. To me, forget anything else. She has to be prevented from ever occupying the White House on this issue alone. Okay, but let that go. So she's asked by Dana Bash, what are you going to do on day one? Now, come on. I mean, that's such an obvious question. Kamala Harris says, well, we're going to start implementing our agenda. So Dana Bash says, well, like what? And you could see on Dana Bash's face, like, come on, this is really easy. Like, this is not hard. She says, we're going to implement the $6,000 child tax credit. And then she says, and other things like the $25,000 credit first-time home buyers. Now, she keeps repeating that over. That's all she has. The $6,000 child tax credit and the $25,000 housing credit for first-time buyers. Okay? That's it. Over and over and over again. Now, right away, either Dana Bash is completely in the tank, utterly in the tank for Kamala, or she's an ignoramus. Why? You think what? You just snap your fingers and you give people a $6,000 tax credit? That can only be passed by Congress. Same thing with the $25,000 housing credit, the credit for first-time home buyers. It has to be part of legislation passed through the House. I understand she's saying, that's my plan. I'm going to work with Democrats. This is what I'm going to try to pass. Well, that's maybe within your first 100 days. And that's only if the Democrats control the House. But you can't just issue an executive order. So what I would have right away, here's the obvious. I'm just talking objective journalism. Excuse me, Madam Vice President, but you can't implement that via an executive order. that has to be done through legislation. So that's going to take a couple months. So what are you going to do specifically on day one? Or are you saying you're going to implement an executive order for a $6,000 child tax credit? Because if that's the case, that is blatantly unconstitutional. I mean, that's illegal. It's literally illegal. So either you don't know what you can do as president, what you can't do, or you're going to make yourself a dictator, or you don't know what you're doing on day one. Like, I don't care. Take door 1, take door 2, take door 3. Either way, it's a mess. So what she does is, because it's a non-answer, so Dana Bash goes back and says, again, she repeats the question. Oh, no, okay. But what are you going to do on your first day? Now, that makes me believe that she knows, well, a tax credit and a housing tax credit, that's a couple months. That's got to be... So she knows it goes through Congress, but she doesn't want to call her out to embarrass her. So she's going to help her. Okay, let me throw the ball at you again one more time. You just missed, strike. So let me try it one more time. And she repeats the same answer. The same answer. She's vacuous. She's empty. She's got nothing. These are cheap left-wing progressive platitudes. She's a horrible candidate. Horrible. And then, did you see on foreign policy? Nothing. All she asked was one question on Israel and Hamas in Gaza. And what's her answer? We need a ceasefire. Well, how are you going to get a ceasefire? We need a ceasefire. I believe Israel has the right to defend themselves, but I also believe in the Palestinian people's right to dignity and self-determination. I'm giving you verbatim her answer. And you can tell on her face, I'm so smart. I'm so smart. Well, A, the Israelis don't want to recognize an independent Palestinian state. How will you deal with that? B, the Palestinians are calling for the liquidation, the annihilation of Israel. How are you going to deal with that? And the bigger question is, how are you going to deal with Iran? Wasn't it your administration that lifted the sanctions? Did you support Joe Biden in lifting the sanctions on Iran? Like, hello? That's the most obvious follow-up. They didn't ask the follow, or maybe they did, and it's part of that, version that's been left out. The 23 minutes they don't want us to see, because they couldn't believe how dumb her answers were. Because to me, that's the obvious follow-up question. So either Kamala doesn't know, or she gave a disastrous answer. Release the unofficial transcript. What is shocking to me, I've just got to tell you this. I'm telling you now, this is not Jeff Kuhner, who knows that Trump is best for this country. I know it. This is not America First conservative Jeff Kuhner, the conservative commentator. Really, this is simply Jeff Kuhner, objective, nonpartisan. This is the journalist in me, okay, at the Washington Times. There are three things about this woman that I find just mind-boggling, just unbelievably, stunningly stupid. Number one, that she actually picked Waltz, Tiananmen Tim, to be her VP. A communist, a Marxist, an authoritarian, one of the most unpopular, disliked, frankly despicable governors, far left, pro-China governors in the entire country. There were so many others she could have picked. There were at least 6, 7, 8, 10 other candidates she could have picked. That she would pick someone that's even more to the left of her, and who's so reviled and disliked and unpopular, is to me shocking. It was shocking. It's one of these. It's like the withdrawal from Afghanistan. It was so bad and so poorly executed. I remember at the time, like, shaking my head, like, this is what? Like, am I in the Twilight Zone? This can't be happening. Number two, was that she would come out with such a destructive and frankly economically idiotic policy. There's just no other word. Price controls for food. Are you normal? Like, as I said, that's almost like coming out and saying, I want everybody to get nuclear radiation. Like, what? It's that, let me be very charitable. It is that economically illiterate and reckless and irresponsible. It is one of the most failed, disastrous policies in human history, again and again and again. Very few things there's a consensus among economists. This is one of them. And you make this the centerpiece of your campaign? And now 3. That she's this unprepared for her first interview. That she was this bad. I'm like, what? And you had notes. And it was coming from, the regime media, the propaganda media. I mean, Waltz is holding her hand. Dana Bash is holding her hand. CNN is holding her hand. And it's still this bad. I don't know what to say. It's embarrassing for our country. It's humiliating. It's a degradation of our republic, of our democracy. And I can't, look, I really agree with the previous texter. I don't care, honestly. You're a liberal, you're a Democrat, you hate Trump. Okay, fine. Honestly, fine. But this is embarrassing. Like, really, this is embarrassing. And I know this is going to sound crazy to many of you. Well, Jeff, I mean, come on, we're talking about dementia Joe. Biden is better than her. He is. Demented as he is, he's smarter. I'm telling you, he is. Not that he's smart, but I'm telling you, he's smarter. He is. There's more substance. He may take forever to speak, and he may lose his train of thought or whatever. But actually, seriously, if you can, go back and listen to some of Biden's interviews. Like, well, there's a little bit of substance there. There's some policy there. There's some experience there. It says, okay, 50 years in the Senate, you can see a little something there. There's something. This, empty, like a black hole. It's just empty. It's empty, empty, empty. It's truly, I'm telling you, it's frightening. She really is as close to a puppet, a human puppet, as you can possibly get. And no self-respect. When you're in a job and you're applying for a job that even you're blatantly unqualified for. Like, just flagrantly unqualified. And you know it. Like, you're looking around and you're like, I just can't believe I've gotten this far. Like, I can't believe it. And Walz is a complete con man. He lies like it's breathing. He's unfazed. That's a big takeaway from the interview with him. Bash, to her credit, asks him some basic questions about, well, you've been caught lying here, you've been caught lying there, you've been caught, you're lying. He's not flustered, embarrassed, ashamed, nothing, unfazed. He's a pure con man, 617-266-6868. Agree, disagree. Rich in Natick. Thanks for holding, Rich, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hi, Rich.
Yeah, it was. I didn't watch the interview, but I've seen clips of it. I of course, couldn't sit through the whole thing if I wanted to, but it was a good interview because it greased the slide for communism, for Kamala Harris and bobblehead Waltz. It's greasing their slide downward to the loss that's coming their way. I mean, if you can't see these people incompetent, like it's plain as day, and I'm also in recovery. I'm a friend of Bill W., not to be confused with Bill in Sudbury. And I've been clean and sober almost 12 years. And one of the classic telltale signs of an active alcoholic is dishonesty. And when you lie, especially on camera like that, to millions of people, it creates an inner turmoil, and you need to drink that away to get rid of that uncomfortable feeling. Because if you have any morals and values at all, which most people do, is you have guilt, shame, and remorse over being dishonest. So when you sit in front of a camera or in front of an interview like that, you need to quell that inner turmoil, whether that she has a few drinks before the interview, maybe a couple afterwards, or what have you. But dishonesty is one of the big ones.
Interesting.
And,
Rich, interesting. Rich, if you don't mind me asking just a quick, again, if I'm getting too personal, please tell me. And by the way, I mean it really from the bottom of my heart. God bless you. I had several family members, like you, turned our life around, and honestly, wonderful, successful lives. And I know it's hard because I know how intense, how powerful addiction can really grip people. So I admire your willpower and your courage. I really do, Rich. Rich, are there any, because I'm not a drinker. Like really, I'm as close to a teetotaler as you can possibly get. Sip of champagne on my wedding night with my wife at our wedding reception. We had a baptism for our 2 children. I asked everybody to raise their glass, had a little sip. Outside of a couple sips, I don't touch alcohol. I mean, I think maybe 3 or 4 times in my life I've sipped alcohol. So I'm as close to a teetotaler as you can possibly get. Her facial expressions, her hand gestures, her eyes, is there anything like a physical tell that you noticed in the interview yesterday or in general when she's speaking or she's on the campaign trail? Is there anything that you spot?
Sure. I see the glassy eyes, the movement of the hand gestures all the time. She does it. Nancy Pelosi does it. Hakeem Jeffries does. A lot of them do it because they take speaking classes and they think they can mesmerize the crowd by moving their hands around like you're like a zoo animal or something, and you'll be distracted by the hand gestures versus paying attention to what they're actually saying. But yeah, the word salad, the heckling, the nervous laughter. Biden was, has dementia. Kamala Harris, I think, is schizophrenic. That's the only thing I can think of with all the changes in positions. And word has it, the only other time she changed positions more was with one of her trysts with Willie Brown.
I saw you were going. I could see you with the wind up. I said he's not going to go. He went there. Rich, thank you very, very much for that call. 617-266-6868. All right, super quick. This to me was another unbelievable. You want to talk about lying? This to me was, and she knows she's lying. And she knows that we know that she's lying. It's when Dana Bash asks her about, you kept telling people for years that Biden was fine. His mental acuity, his mental health, he was sharp as a tack. You kept saying that over and over and over. I mean, in other words, you lied to us. You lied to us for years. You were part of the cover-up. Do you have any regrets whatsoever? Listen to this answer. Ay, ay, ay. Roll cut 2. Mike.
You were a very staunch defender of President Biden's capacity to serve another 4 years. Right after the debate, you insisted that President Biden is extraordinarily strong. Given where we are now, do you have any regrets about what you told the American people?
No, not at all. Not at all. I have served with President Biden for almost 4 years now, and I'll tell you, it's one of the greatest honors of my career, truly. He cares so deeply about the American people. He is so smart and loyal to the American people. And I have spent hours upon hours with him, be it in the Oval Office or the Situation Room. He has the intelligence, the commitment, and the judgment and disposition that I think the American people rightly deserve in their president.
Half of what she's saying, I have no idea what she's talking about. Or it's a blatant lie. The Bidens have been loyal to America. How much have they stolen from us? How much did they sell us down the river to other countries and foreign entities? I mean, this is undeniable. The evidence is irrefutable. But then Dana Bash wants to know about that call. So when Biden finally said he was, so notice, so you mean to tell me for 3.5 years, you never noticed any mental decline? No cognitive decline? No? He never know? I mean, we could see it in public events. For example, there's a guy called Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer. Yeah, he was saying for 3.5 years that he's a demented, senile buffoon. His audience, Kuhner country, wonderful, ordinary people. They don't have special access to the White House. They're not working with them every day. And they kept saying over and over again, he's clearly senile. No, he's clearly mentally, he's half gone. So how come from, several thousand miles away, they could see that Joe Biden was mentally gone? But you, who allegedly was always the last person out of the room, and you were his co-president, and you were his top advisor, and you cast tie-breaking vote after tie-breaking vote for his agenda. Suddenly, so you worked with him, hand in glove. No, he was fine the whole time, yeah? Like, you expect us to believe this BS? Now, instead of holding her feet to the fire, Dana Bash, okay. All right, well, she BS'd him there. Let's keep going. So she wants to know about the call. Now, this is very revealing. Roll cut to B, Mike.
My family was staying with us, and including my baby nieces, and we had just had pancakes and, Auntie, can I have more bacon? Yes, I'll make you more bacon. And then we were sitting down to do a puzzle. And the phone rang, and it was Joe Biden. And he told me what he had decided to do. And I asked him, are you sure? And he said yes. And but that's how I learned about it.
Do you believe her? She never cooks. Ever. She doesn't cook. And Auntie, can you make us more bacon? Can you make us more bacon? And then I was sitting down with them, and we were having a puzzle, because we're just this warm, cuddly family, and, everything is a lie. Everything. And she helped orchestrate the coup. She was the one with Pelosi, and Pelosi said, Kamala's going to invoke the 25th Amendment. You want to go down that way, Joe? Kamala will lead the insurrection against you. She has half the cabinet behind her. You want to be the first one to go because of the 25th Amendment? As she put it, Joe, we can do this the hard way or the easy way. And this is now her. This is Chameleon Kamala. Are you sure, Joe? Is this really what you want to do, Joe? Because, my first priority is, it was for him. Because, Joe, you've been such an incredible president. You really sure you want to do this? I mean, I'm telling you, man, I've heard some serious bull, you-know-what, okay? Some real BS, some real lies in my life. This takes the cake. I mean, you want to talk about a BSer? No one can stack it or pile it higher than this fraud. 919 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, very quickly. So she clearly lies about the call that she got from Joey. when he announced to her that, hey, I'm dropping out. Basically, they pushed him out. It was a coup. Now, listen to this, because this is the fundamental contradiction at the heart of everything. So now Dana Bash is pressing, and she says, well, did he endorse you from the beginning? Like right away when he called you, did he endorse you? Now, listen to the response from Chameleon Kamala. Roll cut to C, Mike.
And what about the endorsement? Did you ask for it?
He was very clear that he was going to support me.
So when he called to tell you, he said, I'm pulling out of the race and I'm going to support you.
Well, my first thought was not about me, to be honest with you.
Right.
My first thought was about him, to be honest. I think history is going to show a number of things about Joe Biden's presidency. I think history is going to show that in so many ways it was transformative.
And she goes on again about what a great president he was, how he was smart, brilliant, guided us through COVID. Oh, the economy couldn't be better. Then, okay, why did he step down? If he's so brilliant and so transformative and so smart and so loyal and so successful, then why did he step down? I'm sorry. So, and you're telling me you never saw a problem with him? That's what you said over and over again. There was never a problem. So, okay, so why then did you guys overthrow him? She can't answer that fundamental question. If he's such a magnificent president, and according to you, worked 16, that's what she said. He was working 16, 18, 20-hour days. He broke his back for the American people. The energy that he had. We couldn't keep up with Joe, according to her. Well, if that's the case, so you never lied about his obvious dementia, which was clear to most of us for years. So why is he stepping down? You knew, everybody knew that this guy was a demented, senile old fool. Everybody knew. And you see, that's why the interview was a bomb. Because she comes across as a liar, as a disgusting, fake, phony liar. Completely insincere. She knows she's lying. We know she's lying. She knows that we know that she's lying. That's her problem. And nothing. CNN can edit this till the cows come home. The media can say this was the most brilliant interview in the human history. Nothing is going to change this fundamental problem. And I'm telling you, Americans hate phonies and frauds, especially shyster politicians. She's not likable. She's not likable. Her ratings are already, her numbers are already starting to go down, and they're going to crater. So now you know why they've been hiding her. Because the woman is a bad liar. She's not just a pathological liar. She's a bad pathological liar. Agree, disagree. Frank in Gloucester. Thanks for holding, Frank, and welcome.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Frank. Hey, go ahead.
Okay. Earlier you said that our standards are so low that we would elect a vice president that was arrested for DUI. Well, you got no problem supporting a guy that was convicted of assaulting a woman. I mean, that's your standard.
My standard. She was convicted of assaulting a woman. You know the difference between a civil suit and a criminal suit, right, Frank? Do you know the difference?
Yes, I know the difference.
All right.
I know the difference.
And if this was in a crime, in a criminal court, with regular standards of criminal justice, this would have been laughed out of court. So, very simply, Frank, she claimed 12 other men raped her. 12 other powerful men raped her, including the former boss of CBS, Les Moonves. that wasn't allowed to be admitted in court. You do know that, Frank. You do know that they literally have the emails. This was an episode off of Law and Order. She got the whole fabricated story off an episode in Law and Order. They weren't allowing that to be admitted into court. Do you know that this woman couldn't even tell you the year she was allegedly raped? The year. So, Frank, in no other system outside of that system up in Manhattan, where they voted 99.9% against Trump, would any normal jury vote that Trump was guilty of rape? And by the way, they didn't find him guilty of rape, and they didn't even find him guilty of sexual assault. They found him guilty of something called sexual abuse. So if you believe that Trump actually raped that whack job, then I got some swampland you may be interested in, Frank, in Florida.
He was convicted of it, right?
Who cares? Who
what
cares?
What do you mean, who cares? You do. What do you mean, no, who cares?
Hey, was Nelson Mandela? Hold on. Was Nelson Yeah, by the way, he wasn't convicted. It's not criminal. There's no conviction in a civil case. This should show you how ignorant you are. By the way, you know, Nelson Mandela was found guilty many times. Who cares? He was an innocent man. Trump is an innocent man. And you're an idiot. See what I got to put up with? You see what I got to... You see the moonbats I got to talk to make a living? You see what I got to do? I have to put food on the table. They don't pay me enough. No, honestly, Mike, I feel like I've lost a couple of brain cells after having, spoken to Frank in Gloucester. It's like the collective IQ of the audience just went down a few points. We're on the air now. 9:31 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer, 617-266-6868. I promise I'm going to get to more of your phone calls. But first, joining me now, as she always does at this time, the CEO president of Kelly Financial Services. And yes, that is her wonderful name, Kelly. Kelly, how are you?
Good morning, Jeff. I am good. Well, the time has come to cut interest rates. In an article from the Associated Press last week, Fed Chair Jerome Powell said that the central bank is poised to cut its benchmark interest rate in September. This move by the Fed will have consequences, especially when it comes to retirement savings, credit card debt, mortgages, and auto loans. How can you prepare for these changes? Fixed rate income strategies focus on investments that provide regular, predictable returns such as bonds, CDs, and annuities, essential for retirees who need a steady cash flow to cover their living expenses. Kelly Financial can review your current financial situation and discuss the role these investments can play in your retirement strategy. To set up a free retirement consultation, give us a call or email kelly@kellyfinancial.org. Jeff, I will continue this conversation with our Kelly advisors tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. on Safe Money Strategies Radio. Do tune in or go to our website for our radio rewind. Jeff, enjoy the holiday weekend. Happy birthday, and my best to Grace and the kiddos.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for remembering my birthday. Kelly, God bless you. Have a wonderful Labor Day weekend, and give my best to everybody. All right, we've been talking with Kelly from Kelly Financial. Call now to set up a free retirement consultation with their advisors. 888-800-1881, 888-800-1881, or email kelly@kellyfinancial.org. 617-266-6868. Mike, who do you want me to go to next, Mike? Jeff in Chelsea. Thanks for holding, Jeff, and welcome.
Oh, thank you very much, Jeff. Well,
Hi,
Jeff, as far as Waltz is concerned and going to China 30 times, Jeff, You have to live in Chelsea, Lawrence, Dorchester, Mattapan, and Roxbury, because guess what? The people that live in these kind of areas don't care if Walsh went to China 30 times or that Kamala Harris is about as smart as a bag of rocks. They don't care because the great wealth transfer is occurring. The invisible hand is going into the pockets of me and you, and it's being given to them. It's being given to the union hacks. It's being given to the government hacks. It's being given to the apparatchik professors who teach in the universities. It's being given to the college students that want their college student loans paid off. What's happening is in these blue states, you have lots of conservatives in these blue states, but the big cities call the shots. It's concentrated communism. That's what you're dealing with here, Jeff. So unless you live in a ghetto, you won't get that perspective. Your area is kind of being turned to a ghetto through illegal immigration, but it's like stages of cancer. Stage 4 ghetto is Roxbury, the Bronx, and areas like that. And your area is about 2 or 3 in the 2 to 3 stage cancer. What do you think, Jeff?
I like the way you phrase that. Yeah, we're kind of more in the early stages. Where you are is more in the later lethal stages. But, pretty soon this is going to kill all of us. And, Jeff, I think really the $64,000 question, there's many ways to frame the race. It's communism versus freedom. I think to me there's no question. It's really America versus Venezuela. That's the crossroads we're at now, especially with price controls. She's crazy. Venezuela tried price controls. Socialist governments have done it for over 100 years. Every time, it has led to bread lines, food shortages, in some cases famine and starvation. So there's many ways to frame this race. But what I like the way you're phrasing it is, it's the makers versus the takers. Those who work, are productive, pay taxes, are net makers, net contributors, and what you were talking about, those that always have their hand in someone else's pocket, who take all this tax money and, for themselves. And you've got illegal aliens, you've got these privileged students, many of whom are upper middle class or come from very prosperous homes, and they want us to pay off all their student loan debts. You mentioned the public sector union hacks, government bureaucrats. We could go on and on and on. Are there more makers or takers? I think that's the real question now, Jeff. Is there more of them or is there more of us?
That's right. And let me add to this before I go, is that the danger is the Democrats are not talking to us. And I hate to use race, but they're not talking to the white producers. They're talking to them. We are in the middle of a communist battle here, which is we're not being talked to. We're outside in the freezing cold, and they just gave us the middle finger. Jeff, I'm telling you something. I don't want this to happen, but I believe that civil war is right around the corner. It's like gravity. It's coming, Jeff. And the sides are already being chosen. I didn't choose them. You didn't choose them. The government has chose them. And that's the makings of civil war, and the language is pure, unadulterated communism. The takers versus the producers. Thank you very much for having me on.
Jeff, thank you very much. Yeah, the takers versus the makers, or the tax consumers versus the tax producers. However, there's many ways you can, the parasites versus the producers. I mean, there's many ways you can phrase this, but essentially, that's what the race now really boils down to. And look, I hope there's no civil war. God, it would break my heart. It really would. And that's why we have to win in November to cut this off at the pass, to prevent anything like this from happening to our country. And that's why I'm urging everybody, you've got to vote this November like your life depended on it. 617-266-6868. Chris in Norfolk. Thanks for holding, Chris, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff. Thanks for having me on.
My pleasure, Chris.
I'm going to take the discussion back a few moments, if that's okay, to addiction.
Yes, go ahead.
What I would like to say, Jeff, is that an alcoholic, once you take your drink, a stopwatch starts ticking for your next drink. And you could see her progressively getting more fidgety, more nervous. She could, and when, several people mentioned her blank stare and that look in her eye, she's thinking about how long it's been since her last drink and how long it's going to be till her next drink in those moments.
Interesting. Chris, if you don't mind me asking, have you battled alcoholism in your life?
Addiction, not so much alcoholism, but addiction, and it's the same. And it's a feeling of desperation, and that's what makes addiction so terrible. You've never felt so desperate in your life, and you will do anything to get to that next drink or whatever your vice is. And you can see her start thinking about it. How long has it been? It's been a half an hour since I've had a drink. I have 20 minutes, and she's getting nervous.
Chris,
you can see it. As an addict, I'm seeing myself feeling desperate. Where am I going to get my next whatever your vice is,
Chris, I believe you. Believe me, I believe you. And there's so many others who are saying exactly what you're saying. But I just, for some in the audience who don't believe it or are still skeptical, let me just play devil's advocate. I want to get your take. What do you say to the argument, well, she's just nervous. It's not the booze. It's not the drugs. It's not the addiction. She's just not very smart. She's been constantly promoted above her ability. She's just simply out of her league, out of her depth. So what you're seeing now is a very insecure, anxious person who just never should have been senator, never should have been actually attorney general, but never mind that. Should never have been DA, should never have been attorney general, should never have been senator, should certainly have never been vice president, and now really should not be president. That's why she's fidgety. That's why she's nervous. That's why she's stressed. That's why she's panicking. That's why she has these word salads. That's why she's incoherent. That, Chris, you're reading addiction, but this is not a woman who's battling the bottle or battling, weed or whatever. This is just a woman who's out of her depth. Period. Full stop. What do you say to that argument?
I don't think that's an argument in favor of her, though. That just makes her look more terrible, that's not acceptable either, Jeff. So if that's your argument, then I'll concede. Maybe I am wrong. Yeah. But that doesn't make her acceptable either, Jeff.
In other words, you're saying it's almost better to say you're an alcoholic or whatever. At least that's an excuse, right? Chris, you're clean. You're clean now. You've recovered. You've got your addiction under control. Yeah. Okay, Chris. Thank you very much, Chris. God bless you, and thank you very, very much for that call. I really, really appreciate it. Okay, my friends. I'm just curious. Do you agree with Chris? Your calls next. 9:48 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. All right, Kuhner Country, please stop whatever you're doing. Whatever you're doing, please stop for a second because you need to hear this. I think this is going to be the big scandal that's going to break this weekend. It's on the verge now of breaking. McDonald's Gate. You're going to say, Jeff, what are you talking about? Kamala Harris repeatedly claims on the campaign trail, and she's been doing this for years. Why is she part of the working class? She claimed, by the way, she's never had an honest job in the private sector in her life. This is a woman who has been sucking off the public teat forever. But her one claim to having a private sector job and to being a, quote, working class gal is that she claims she worked at McDonald's. And she says it over and over and over and over. Like Tim Waltz, she can't help herself. Well, guess what now? Fox News is doing an investigation. Many others are as well. And so far, what they're reporting, McDonald's cannot verify there are any records whatsoever that Kamala Harris, Comrade Kamala, ever made a Big Mac in her life, or fries, or a milkshake, or a fillet of fish, or a quarter pounder, or whatever, a quarter pounder with cheese, or I'm getting hungry here. But let that go. She's never worked at McDonald's. They can't find a record. Now, I'm telling you that she lied. I'm convinced of it. I'm convinced of it. Now, we're going to get 100% definitive proof, I think, in the next 24 to 48 hours. Now, when this shoe drops, how does she spin her way out of this one? Over and over on the campaign. I worked at McDonald's. I know your struggles. I was working. I'm a working class gal just like all of you. And she made it up. And she made it up. Like everything else, it's all fake BS, a pack of lies. And it may seem small, but it tells you everything you need to know. She's never had an honest job in her life. And this woman lies about working at McDonald's. So you've got Waltz with his stolen valor. And what do you call this? Really? What, stolen McDonald's? Like, really? Who lies about working at McDonald's? You can't make this up. This is not a campaign. This is a clown show. Ace in the great state of North Carolina. Thanks for holding, Ace, and welcome.
Hello, Jeff. First time, long time.
Welcome, Ace.
Welcome. Here. I got something way too important to not share this. And we need to understand that the Dems are the party of deflection. Their biggest mantra is they want to protect democracy, but they're doing everything to try to destroy the United States version of democracy. They're trying to hamstring the SCOTUS, the Supreme Court, the migrants and all the migrants coming over and all the illegal voting. You realize there is some major data breaches. And in fact, my social security number got onto the dark web. So that's another danger of these migrants coming in, the data breaches. So these migrants maybe possibly grab your social security number. So anyway, so I think the Trump campaign, I hope there's a Trump campaign person listening to the show right now. I think they need a hijack, as the Democrats hijack some of Trump's things like no tax on tips. I think they need to hijack that protecting democracy mantra that the Democrats have been spewing for some time. So this is and I say to do it, what they need to do is just flash make an ad that says protecting democracy and show how the Trump administration is going to do it. One, to bring confidence in election outcomes, to ensuring all votes matter in secure elections, keeping accountability, maintaining the separation of powers, because that's what the Democrats are trying to do. They're trying to get rid of the Supreme Court, so therefore they can become a one-party totalitarian regime. And but to protect that, because that's protecting our democracy here. We're actually a republic. We all know this. And also, with the immigration thing, I'm one of the few that actually went through the immigration process. I brought my wife here in 1992. I had to fill all these forms, including the I-134 affidavit of support, and my wife had to wait 6 months before I could bring her in, and that was the short version. So one thing, I think we need to keep it positive. You know, I hear this talk like, let's deport all the migrants. I think we should say, let's get a fair and uniform process for people who come to the U.S. and to get them citizenship. And at the end of this ad, and this is just kind of rough, whoever could take this and run with it could maybe kind of modify it, but just throughout the ad, this reinforces that the actions that we're trying to take to protect our U.S. democracy is keeping the American dream alive for all. And end this ad with flashing.
Ace, honestly, I think it's turned the democracy argument on them. I think it's brilliant. I think it's absolutely brilliant. And I think you're not 100. I think you're 1,000% correct. I think it's now time to take the guns of the left and turn them on the left and use this democracy argument against them. Because now, whether it's censorship, whether it's jailing their political opponents, whether, as you put it rightly, allowing illegals to infiltrate our country and infiltrate our election system, you can go on and on. The only threat to democracy now is them. There's no question. There's no question. Ace, have a wonderful weekend, and thank you very much for that call. Dan in New Hampshire. Dan, I hate to do this to you. I've got 1 minute left. The floor is yours. Go. Dan? Did we lose Dan? Let's go. Don in New Hampshire. Don, 1 minute. Go.
Okay, real quick. So going back, when Kamala Harris is asked about calling Joe Biden a liar, and her answer, I don't know if you remember this, but she said, it was a debate. I called him a liar, a racist in a debate. So she actually lied in the process of debating. I wonder if she would be willing to lie for any other reason.
Oh, touche. Don, touche. And I don't know if you've seen this, but Trump and the Trump-Vance campaign has pounced on her. You know, my values haven't changed. That was her line yesterday. And they've got her now talking about, let's get rid of Merry Christmas. Let's abolish ICE. Let's get rid of offshore drilling. Let's get rid of fracking. Let's allow illegals to come in and give them all amnesty. They're going to use that phrase, and they're going to wrap it around her neck. Have a nice weekend. Bye.